Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Vibes. I'd love to welcome here Scottie Schneider. And you work with plant medicines, and we're going to talk about that, get to know him. Let's kick this off right. Scottie, tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah, brother, I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity, man.
Of course.
I grew up homeschooled on a little farm in North Carolina, extremely religious Christian parents. We were preparing for Y2K and the eventual downfall of the entire world, so that was fun. And joined the Army, went to West Point, graduated as a field artillery officer, served up in Alaska for a couple of years, froze off a toe and a half, joined the oil industry, then became an entrepreneur, traveled the world, and ended up here in Colombia. Been here the last decade. And for me, that was a very long path to find out what I wanted to do in life, what was going to make me happy, to stabilize, to find community and family. And couldn't be happier, man. For anybody that has not traveled, to Colombia is a really wonderful country.
Well, I mentioned before about the plant medicines. What started you on that journey?
Yeah, I've been experimenting with a variety of different modalities for healing. I was, I've been and have been separated from my family at birth for the last 20 years or so. So leaving the army, facing the tremendous change and transition from, hey, well, I was a soldier, what am I now? Doing that without family, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, what was going to make me happy. I mean, I was not a happy person, man. I was an alcoholic, angry all the time, stressed. It was not a pretty picture. So I was constantly trying to figure out, okay, well, how can I make myself feel better? So I started off with, there's this guy called Sam Harris, a neuroscientist, really great dude. He has a podcast called the Waking Up Podcast. And one of his first episodes was drugs and the meaning of life. And so here's this very smart dude. I'm coming from a very traditional background. He's like, yeah, I did a lot of acid. It's like, okay. So he did a lot of acid and he did a lot of Vipassana meditation. It's like, well, I'll try those. So I had been doing Vipassana meditation, LSD, and then working with MDMA for probably about 4 or 5 years during the time while I was moving to Colombia. And Sam Harris's idea was everything that you experience inside of a psychedelic trip or with a particular medicine or a particular drug can be experienced without it. So I would take these substances and ask myself, all right, well, what am I missing in my life that I'm getting out of this experience? So when I took MDMA for the first time, I walked up to the bar, the club that I was at, and I asked for water for like the second time. And this bartender remembered my name. I was like, hey, Scotty, you want another water? I thought that was the best thing ever, man. I was like, dude, how, like, you really taken a personal interest in me, man. Thank you. Now, of course, my eyes probably dilated as big as dinner plates, and anybody that's taken MDMA probably knows what I'm talking about. I was a newbie. But that was a really important moment for me. I was like, well, okay, why don't I take that much personal interest in other people? Why don't I appreciate the little things that they do? And so that was kind of my journey. So in 2021, I was married to a Colombian. We ended up getting divorced, but she's now happily relocated to the US and we're wonderful friends. But it was a difficult time. And so I was really looking for, okay, well, what's the next step? LSD, meditation, MDMA got me part of the way. And there's this medicine that people kept talking about called ayahuasca. And I thought they were crazy. But I was like, you know what? Nothing else is working. So I traveled out to the jungle and I took ayahuasca for the first time. And not a whole lot of stuff happened. Like most people's experience is like, oh, I saw all the colors and everything. It was tremendously life changing. Nothing happened, man. And I was like, this is all BS. Like, what the hell is going on? But I decided to do it at another time. And that led me on to what is now a 4 year plus running journey with that and other traditional medicines. And it completely led to a lot of life changes. So I started digging into the things that I was doing in my personal life that weren't healthy, like drinking, the things that I was running away from, like my relationship with my parents. And I started to work on that stuff. The one thing that ayahuasca does probably better than any other medicine I've ever seen or taken, it confronts you with the things that you're not doing or that you need to be doing. And so it's a little bit like a stern mother in that aspect. It's impossible to ignore. So I started to work on myself, and we call it doing the work. So going to a ceremony is great. You know, you see the universe and how you're connected and all of it. But if you go home and you're mainlining Oreos and energy drinks and, you know, drinking yourself into an early grave, like you're wasting your time. So I started, like, again, I mentioned doing the work and making myself a better person. And now I've done a 180. You know, I used to be this angry alcoholic army officer, and now I'm creating a family and a community, and I'm a musician, and I'm doing good things in my community, and I couldn't be happier, man. I went from surviving to enjoying life and thriving, and that's a very difficult thing to explain to somebody that hasn't experienced that before.
Well, if you don't mind, I want to share a little bit of my background.
Please. I love
And
that.
anyone that is a regular to the show, they've heard the stories before. But I was molested as a little kid, and as I was growing up, I didn't have any self confidence whatsoever, trying to fit in, and I fell in with the heads at school. Yeah, that was what we called ourselves back in the 80s. And everybody was drinking, doing drugs, and I felt like that's what I needed to do to fit in. And then it just became a full-blown habit, and drank heavy for years. And mine just started probably at the age of 12. Anyway, by the time I hit 36, I had a heart attack, and I found out that I was diabetic, high blood pressure, and also I had never addressed it before, but I'd been dealing with depression for all those years. And eventually I ended up not only in the hospital for my heart attack, but I went to a mental hospital to deal with depression, anxiety, and PTSD. And what's the first thing that doctors want to do when you have all these symptoms is they want to throw pills at you.
Yeah.
And I took so many pills. I literally carried a backpack that was filled with all these different medicines, and then had to take a medicine to help filter my liver from all the other medicines that I was taking. And eventually I finally quit drinking, quit doing drugs. My last drugs were it was cocaine. I was really bad with coke, and my depression was not getting any better. My anxiety wasn't getting any better, and this if you startled me, I went into a full blown panic, and I met someone who turned me on to meditation. That helped me. I got on a better diet, changed my lifestyle, and things started getting better. And but I was looking for what can I do to get off all these pills. Well, that was where the meditation came in. I weaned myself off of a lot of those medicines. So now I'm down to just a small handful. But I've met other folks and a lot of veterans that have been on the show that they deal with PTSD from what they saw during combat. And I've had people come on talking about psilocybins, things like that. My worry is, eh, am I going to step into this and get right back into another drug habit again?
Mhm.
So, what's your experience as far as that goes, and what would you give as advice for someone who is afraid of becoming addicted?
Dude, that's such a great question, man. And I definitely resonate with what you mentioned about the military veterans. I've had quite a few conversations with military veterans, probably about 25 recorded and probably about 100 that are not recorded about PTSD and trauma and healing. So the first thing that I'm going to say is that it's not necessary to take any particular one healing modality or any drug or any medicine. So you can heal without psilocybin, you can heal without ayahuasca. So if a particular modality doesn't resonate with you, there are many others that will work. It's kind of like a bazillion ways to get to Rome. The second thing is that most of the traditional psychedelic medicines, in fact, almost all of them, don't affect the dopamine pathway, which is what is responsible for addiction. Most of them affect the serotonin pathway. The only exception to the medicines that I'm aware of that do affect the dopamine pathway is MDMA. So if you've got any sort of addiction problems, I wouldn't use that one. But things like ayahuasca, ibogaine, these things have been proven to actually help with addictions. So medically speaking, you're probably safe, but also with the overall general caveat of You don't have to take any one particular medicine. It's not like you're going to get better results with ayahuasca versus meditation. They work in different ways.
Gotcha. Now, I failed to mention I also developed a spinal disease over this time, and I go to a pain care physician, and I was very worried because what is it they want to give you? They want to give you
Opiates.
opioids, right?
Yeah.
And I flat out told my doctor, I said, "Look, I'm an addict. If you give me something like that, I will abuse it." And they now what I'm taking it it is an opiate type of medicine, but uh, it's called buprenorphine, which is something that they give you to help you get off of opiates.
Mhm.
So it helps tremendously. Not only does it help with the pain, but it keeps me from wanting to go use. And mind you, I got uh, somebody gave me one of these gummies, and the gummy had THC in it, and I didn't know that it had that in it. I thought it was just like, the uh I forgot what you call it. But anyway,
CBD, the
CBD,
one
right,
that
right,
does,
right.
yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that's what I thought it was. And when I took it, I started having seizures. So I'm like, yeah, I will never
There's
touch anything like that again.
there's a couple of really important points here. The first, I wanted to touch on what you had mentioned before, which is, and I want to be very clear, I'm not saying that Western medicine is bad.
Right.
There is a place for it, and it's very useful. But I think that it's one way of viewing things, and what I like to look at is a more holistic way of viewing things. Like my wife is actually a medical practitioner, a doctor here in Colombia, so I've got like a little bit of both sides, kind of coming in this. And she's taking ayahuasca as well. She's a medicine woman in her own right. The first thing is that typically in the Western traditions, like you said, you come in with depression and they want to load you up with drugs and chemicals to treat the symptoms. And that's a polar opposite from what the indigenous wisdom usually dictates, which is let's not treat the symptoms, let's treat the root cause. So, hey, I am anxious because I got PTSD and had some early traumatic childhood experiences, and I'm reacting to things poorly, and I'm depressed. Okay, well, you could take a drug that's going to absolutely mellow you out and turn you into a zombie, or you could take a medicine and say, all right, let's look behind that, and what is the root cause of why I'm this way? And maybe by addressing the trauma and living my life in a better way, these other symptoms will subside. So I think it's a really important point that you mentioned. You sort of instinctively knew that the backpack of drugs that I'm carrying around is probably not the long-term solution. And I really wanted to applaud you for that. And then the second thing is that we're facing a bit of a challenge here. The medicines and I'll say drugs because that's what most people refer to them as, like marijuana, are being taken out of their traditional context. And the chemicals themselves, like pure THC, are being put into gummies. And that's, in my opinion, a very, very, very bad move. The nature has developed these medicines and drugs in a specific context. So it's not just the active compound, it's all of the other alkaloids and everything that else is in the plant. And it's also like, I mean, how much marijuana would you have to smoke to get as much THC as you got in that gummy? Probably more than you could, right? So there's sort of safety buffers that are put into plants in their natural context when they're used in more traditional ways that don't exist when we take those chemical compounds and put them into gummies. So for example, ayahuasca right now, there's an ayahuasca gummy out on the market. And like, I'm not a religious person, but it borderline sacrilegious, right? There's a way that these things have been used and guarded by wonderful men and women through millennia for our history. And there's a way that they should be used. And I think that taking just the chemicals and say, oh, it's just the THC that does it, or it's just the DMT and ayahuasca, that's a very dangerous territory. And I'm hoping that we wake up as a species and stick to more natural contexts.
Right. You've been a part of some of the ceremonies?
I've been part of quite a few. So I have a medicine altar of my own. So I've been blessed by an elder to serve with chuma. It's San Pedro, which is a mescaline containing cactus that grows here in the Andes. I also support various different medicine men and women here in town. So when you're in an ayahuasca ceremony, for those of you that have taken it, you'll be very familiar. There's the person serving the medicine, and then there's the person that's taking care of the fire and playing the music and making sure that you're carried to the bathroom if you can't get there yourself. That's what I do. And I find an incredible amount of pleasure in that service. And it really helps me get back to people. So I'm very much in this world. I'm training with various different elders. So the Siona tribe is a tribe of native Colombian and Ecuadorian indigenous people. They are in the Putumayo region, which is the upper part of the Amazon basin in between Colombia and Ecuador. And I travel down there a lot and travel and train with a family down there and various other healing modalities. And all of that is to inform the work that I do with military veterans, the work that I'm doing in music now, and just in general to help people live healthier lives. Because one thing that my personal viewpoint is, once you start healing yourself and you start feeling better, you generally start wanting to help others, or you're kind of an asshole. Right? That's just how it goes. It's unavoidable. So that's my thing, man. I like to help people.
Can you legally do that in the United States?
In the United States, no. There's some gray zone, and I forget the name of the actual act, but after the U.S. government restricted the rights religiously and medicinally of the Native Americans in our country, I think under President Clinton, they did an act that made religious use of psychedelics in certain contexts legal. Currently, it's legal only if you're a member of a Native American church. There's been some work in terms of, well, we're Native Americans just from down south. So there's some gray zone there. It's not technically illegal yet, but I'm hoping that things will improve. But bottom line, it is legal here in Colombia because it's an ancestral indigenous medicine. And so in Colombia, if you can't do it in the US and you don't want to run the risk of doing something that's illegal, come down here and we have people that can guide you through that process. And it is fully legal here.
It has to be the lobbyists from Big Pharma because here's a cheaper way of helping people and it takes out of their profits. That's got to be stopping that kind of stuff from going on here.
That's a huge, huge part of it. That's absolutely correct. Because why would I, first of all, you can't patent the plants, right?
Right,
You just
right.
can't do it, right? So why would I allow a plant to flourish that could permanently solve someone of a problem that I'm making money on recurring, that's keeping them sick and giving me more medicine? Now, is that the whole problem? No. I mean, a lot of it deals with our Protestant roots and how in the US people think about drugs and medicine and certain things that have gone on in the past. It's definitely not right what's happening, and I'm hoping that things turn around. There are a couple of organizations like MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies, something like that. But they've encountered significant roadblocks in the past few years. For example, they've been working for the last decade on approving MDMA for psychedelic therapy in certain contexts and got to phase 3 trials, and it was recently swapped or smacked down by the FDA. So that was a huge setback for us. That said, Thomas Jefferson said once, and I'm going to butcher this quote, but I'm going to give you the context. If there is a immoral law, then it is my duty as a moral citizen to ignore it. And I feel fundamentally that our ability to steward and safeguard the contents of our own consciousness is an inalienable right. So I'm not suggesting someone do anything illegal, but I am saying there all are alternatives. You can be here at Medellin in 3.5 hours from Miami. So come on down and visit. And then meanwhile, again, I'll repeat again, like these medicines are wonderful and they are great and they just really have an amazing effect on a lot of people, but they're not for everybody. So for example, if you have a history of schizophrenia, that's probably not a good idea to explore in these territories. And there are other ways of completely legal healing modalities, like what I'm doing now with my work in medicine music. So playing an instrument has been proven to dramatically lower stress levels and help you personally and spiritually. And so I've launched an entire foundation to train people. That's how we initially connected, right? Because we're both musicians, to train people how to play guitar and sing medicine music. I'm doing that entirely for free. So like, learn to play music. Go take meditation. Go take a yoga class. Go work out. I mean, if you look at it, most of the things that we're looking for is like this golden key, this thing that's going to like automatically fix our problems. but that doesn't really exist. So before you um, force yourself into taking like an ayahuasca or psychedelic medicine, look at your diet, look at your exercise, look at your sleep, look at your personal relationships, look at the things that you're doing and the habits in your life. In fact, I literally just had this experience with a very difficult ayahuasca ceremony 2 nights ago. It was probably one of the worst of my life. And I've been feeling extremely stressed recently. I'm working a full-time job. I'm building this foundation. I've got an indigenous family living with me in my home and some other people. There's a lot going on. And I was feeling really stressed and I was asking the medicine for help because we feel the medicine is a spirit that works with us. I was like, hey, I'm feeling really stressed. Can you please help me? Can you please give me some more energy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was an awful night. I felt miserable. I felt no energy. It was just physically uncomfortable, just painful. And in the morning, the medicine said, "Hey, man, you're asking me for help, but what are you doing in your life to fix this problem? Have you adjusted your schedule? Are you taking time for yourself? Are you doing your meditation? So fix that, and then come back to me, and we'll talk." And it was kind of like a slap across the face. You know, these medicines are not a cure-all. They're not a quick fix. What they do allow us to do is figure out, okay, I'm not doing this in my life, and this is what I need to work on, or helping us see things from a different perspective that transform these things. So yeah, I mean, bottom line, look at yourself first, work on your habits, eat well, sleep well, be nice to people, and you'll find that takes you most, if not all, the way.
I feel that you can have a combination of both traditional medicines
100%.
and the plant medicines and be able to heal yourself. And the medicines doctors give you, they're supposed to be a temporary thing, not a daily regimen for the rest of
Exactly.
your life. But
Yep.
unfortunately, that's the way we seem to live here in the United States. Well,
Yeah,
anyway,
well, that's a good point.
um, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do so?
Yeah, well, go to Escuela, S or ESCUELA .coyotepe.com. And so if you mind putting those in the show notes, that would be great. I'll send you over the link later. So that is where you can get in touch with me. It's a completely free course to learn medicine music. We have people from all over the world. In the last month, we've added 3,500 people. We're growing quickly. And we have a lot of people that are willing and absolutely happy to help you either learn music or find things that help for you. Because at the end of the day, we are here to help people heal in whatever form or modality or thing resonates with them. So that's the best way to get in touch with me. That's my foundation and my spiritual and community center. So I'd love to hear from you and anybody that's listening that needs help, like hit me up. This is what we do, literally.
I will put your links in the description just to make it easier for folks. And Scotty, thank you so much, man, for spending your time with me this morning.
My pleasure, man. Thank you for what you're doing, getting the word out and bringing people onto your show. I know this is a lot of work, so thank you for that. And I'm happy to support your mission as well.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back. Please hit that subscribe button for my regulars. You guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. Until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network